there's nothing more gratifying than to drive by a building that has sat empty for God knows how long, and now you've got 30, 40 cars in the parking lot, and because of the work that you did, now you've got a company in there, and now 25, 30 families now are better off because now they have sustainable employment. That's what gets you up in the morning. I would tell people who work for me, if this is just a 9 to 5 to you, then you're in the wrong place. This is not a 9 to 5. This is a lifestyle. This is not a job. And that's in my book as a chaplain. This is a lifestyle. This is a mission. This is a ministry. This is a calling. Truly making the sacrifice. And I say sacrifice because we take a lot of hits.
Welcome to the NarrowSpaces podcast, a limited engagement masterclass where leaders are invited to share their lessons learned and experiences in navigating those narrow spaces of work and life. We are creating a true masterclass in leadership. When the space between work and life is narrow, balance is impossible. I want to encourage you to be brave enough to lead in the narrow spaces. Welcome to the NarrowSpaces show. I'm thrilled to introduce a true legend and dear friend, Ronnie L. Bryant, hailing from Charlotte, North Carolina. Having known Ronnie for years, I can confidently say he embodies what it means to navigate the narrow spaces of both work and life, transforming challenges into opportunities for growth. Ronnie is the founder and lead consultant at Ronnie L. Bryant LLC, a consulting firm dedicated to empowering executives through executive coaching, organizational management, and board development. Since establishing his firm in 2017, he's been on a mission to help leaders enhance their skills and maintain a competitive edge in today's dynamic marketplace. Before launching his own venture, Ronnie served as the president and CEO of the Charlotte Regional Partnership for 15 years, where he championed the region as a premier destination for business expansion. His strategic partnerships and collaborations have earned him a national reputation for excellence in economic development. With over 35 years of leadership experience across multiple states, Ronnie has held executive positions in various economic development organizations. His expertise has made him one of the nation's most sought-after economic developers, particularly in Charlotte, where his impact was deeply felt. Beyond his professional accolades, Ronnie is a passionate advocate for community engagement, serving on multiple boards, including the American Leadership Forum and Goodwill Industries of the Southern Piedmont. He shares his knowledge as a lecturer at esteemed institutions like Cornell University and the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. Ronnie's insights and his expertise are a testament to the power of resilience and the strategic thinking and navigating life's narrow spaces. Join us as we delve into his remarkable journey and discover how his lessons are changing lives and inspiring leaders across the nation. So the concept of this podcast, this interview, is really about the narrow spaces of work and life. So I'd love to dive into it and talk a little bit about the impact that you've had on me. And so we're going to talk about mentorship first. So my question for you, Ronnie, is someone who has walked alongside you for a long time, who's been mentored by you at certain moments. How has mentorship helped you navigate the narrow spaces between personal growth and professional achievement? Can you talk a little bit about a specific time where mentorship made a significant impact?
Well, yes. There are some very significant times in my life where mentorship, whether I was the mentee or the mentor. I had a mentor when I started my working career, and I truly believe what I accomplished can be directly attributed to someone literally, like you used the phrase, taking me under their wing. And I once had a executive director called me a diamond in the rough, and he made sure that I've reached my full potential. He pushed me, he challenged me. I've never had a boss before that bet me, literally, and bet me to do something, and that really made me feel, number one, that he wanted me to definitely excel, but he also knew I needed to be challenged, and he challenged me because that really made a difference in my life. And so I've committed my working career when I became a manager and farther up the ladder to make sure that I brought people with me. And throughout my economic development career, I've always had an opportunity to teach. I'm a former dean of our institute, Economic Development Institute. I'm an instructor, former instructor there, taught there for almost 15 years. And so I've touched the lives of a lot of economic developers, per se, in this country. And so as I progressed and in my last CEO gig, I would constantly get these calls from other CEOs that would have issues. And some of them would be real issues, such as, hey, I've got a board meeting here in an hour, and I've got this board member that's really been a thorn in my side. And I think she's going to ambush me at this meeting. What should I do? How should I prepare for it? And that kind of stuff. And so it started me to focusing on what is it that I want to be, or what do I want to do when I retire. And so consulting was always the direction, but consulting is such a broad term that you are well aware. And so the question became, what type of consulting? Exactly, where do you want to focus? And I did not want to be the traditional economic development consultant. I wanted to deal with people because that's what I encountered in my career, and particularly CEOs and C-level executives, and understanding that the overwhelming majority of nonprofit leaders that are dismissed from an organization, it has nothing to do with their execution of the program or the mission of the organization. It's strictly their relationship with the board. And I think we totally underestimate within the nonprofit environment the influence of your board of directors. And so I started my coaching career and focused my consulting business on organizational management, and my coaching on mentoring and helping C-level executives get through the I am so sorry, get through the issues that we deal with in our day-to-day activities. And so that led to my book. Holly, how do you want to handle this?
Oh, I want to hear this book. Your book is one of those pieces that I feel like people who are really searching for a way to navigate, they want to turn to your book. And they're in the narrow spaces. Anything can happen. We're gonna keep rolling.
Latitude. The map to professional growth. So what's this mean? What are we going to try and do to invest and develop our people, retain that top talent? Well, now it's possible to bring all those things together in one place. Employee engagement surveys, career mapping technology, mentorship software, and then a couple of tips, tricks, short lessons of how to do this over time. Now we know the who can help guide us, the what to talk about in each of those conversations, and the where we can go and grow professionally, all in one spot.
What led to the book was one of the things that I'm very fortunate. My career as a CEO in my last job was 15 years. Well, the average tenure of a nonprofit CEO is 5 to 7 years. And so I blew the average out. And that was known among colleagues around the country. So that's why I got a lot of phone calls. And most of the phone calls were situations with boards. And so I wrote the book, Driving from the Backseat, Tips for Surviving as a Nonprofit CEO. And the title, Driving from the Backseat, it's kind of an analogy on, or a metaphor, if you will, relative to you've got a board in the front seat, but actually you're in the back seat, but you have a set of controls also. You have a steering wheel and you have a accelerator and brakes. And although the perception, and I have to be very careful saying this sometimes, especially with board members, but although the perception is that they're in control, you actually are keeping the car between the lines. And you have to remember that. But you can't ever sit in the front seat. You're not a front seat rider. You are, with something a lot of nonprofit leaders misunderstand, you're staff. And you should never forget that. And when you forget that, that's when you get in trouble, when you start thinking that you're equal to board members. But the book clearly offers 14 tips for understanding what you must, at least from my perspective, what you must pay attention to in an effort to have longevity in your position. And it's everything from understanding the individual issues dealing with board members, all the way to integrity, all the way to how do you handle your staff, down every aspect of what's important. And that's one of the reasons it has been such a popular publication. It's not a long book. It's a little easy read book. But it's written in my kind of my down home style. And without a doubt, you can see I'm busy.
You don't stop. You are busy. And I love that you said that it was retirement, that you're clearly you're still working. And so part of your back to the down home style that your book is delivered in. I mean, Ronnie, I feel like that is one of the things that allows people to really pick it up and move forward. Driving from the backseat, you said something that really resonated about keeping it between the lines. And I want to talk a little bit about the vehicles that we keep between the lines. It's a lot easier with a bicycle to keep it between the lines than it is with a minivan, you know? So there's like that that balance of, when you're single and just kind of worrying about yourself, and when you've got a van full of people that you're taking from place to place. I'd love to talk a little bit about what your journey has been, because 15 years as a CEO, a really incredible history and economic development. So in your view, in your experience, in your look back and look ahead, what does it mean to you to be navigating those narrow spaces, keeping it between the lines of work and life? And can you talk a little bit about how you've navigated some of those particularly challenging experiences, moving from the bicycle to the minivan? How you move yourself forward. It's easier than when you bring a whole bunch of people with you. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, let me give you a little background. And I started my working career with AT&T. At that time, it was Western Electric, in a manufacturing environment. I'd got my undergraduate degree, and I had a job, and that's what life was about. But I never found myself satisfied with where I was, and I was constantly within the context of the facility looking for additional challenges, and the challenges were there. There were always opportunities for promotion and movement, and I took advantage of them, because I've never, even as a youngster, I've always been searching for more. I've never been quote unquote satisfied. And I had an opportunity to represent the company um, at the Shreveport Chamber of Commerce on the Economic Development Committee. And I didn't know anything about economic development at that time. I just happened to be in the wrong place at the right time, and I got selected. And so when the vestiture started breaking up Marbell, and it was my number came up because they started purging middle management employees, and so the chamber offered me a job. So that became my first economic development position in 1990 with the Shreveport Chamber of Commerce, and that brought me into a world that I didn't know anything about. I now had moved from a very confined space in a large manufacturing facility. We were like 15,000 people at one time. And into now I'm downtown. I'm downtown with the starch white shirts and so forth. And it's just it was a different environment. And it was a little intimidating. Just to back up, my first meeting in the plant, we wore ties, but we were in a manufacturing facility, so we wore short sleeve shirts and pocket protectors, with your pen. That was typical. And so I go to my first meeting downtown, and I'm dressed like, but I put a jacket on, fair enough. And I go in the meeting, and there were 6, 7, 8 other people there, mostly guys. And you sit down around the table, and everybody takes their jacket off. I take my jacket off. Everyone else had on either a white or blue long sleeve starched Oxford shirt. Okay. I had on my home pressed short sleeve plaid shirt with a pocket protector.
Nice. I got the visual. I like it.
But I felt out of place. Nobody said anything. Nobody snickered or anything because they knew where I worked. But still, to me, it was not where I wanted to be. And so I immediately changed that by the way I dressed when I came downtown. And so 1990, they offered me a job. And now I'm in this purely small environment where I came from a big place in a purely small environment. And two things, interesting enough, you talk about narrow spaces. In my almost 15 years at the plant, I had never worked for a woman, and I never worked for someone younger than me. Well, I get to the chamber, I got both of those and didn't like it. I just didn't like it. And I worked my way out of it. And when I left there, I was the number 2 person in the facility in 5 years because I knew office politics. I understood office politics. And so I was very fortunate. Again, I was aggressive. I understood you needed to do more. I've always been a quick learner. And I was noticed. I didn't know I was being noticed. Well, the folks in St. Louis noticed me. And that's what got me recruited to St. Louis. And they were very impressed with what they had learned about what I was doing in a small city like Shreveport. And so that put me in another area of space that I'd never been in before in terms of the number of people who reported to me, the size of my budget, et cetera, et cetera. And the gravity of a much larger city, a much larger area, and a much bigger job. But I loved it. I was in my element and loved it. And we had great success there. I had developed a management style where I have former employees contact me now because I'm an employee's boss. I believe in empowering people. I believe in respecting people. I believe in letting people do their job. I'm not a micromanager. And I make it very clear, my expectation is that you're going to do the right thing. I don't care what time you come to work. I don't care what time you leave, but I'm looking at your output. As long as you get it done, we're friends. And so it's not my job to sit up and watch you come in at 8:30, or make sure you stay at your desk till 5 o'clock. That's a myth. I think if you leave the office at exactly 5 o'clock every day, I want you to leave at 4:45, because that's when you actually shut down in order to be ready to walk out at 5. It takes a few minutes of prep to get out.
Right.
But in that vein, and I really, again, never satisfied. After 5 years, I wanted my boss's job. I was ready to be a CEO. I was number 2 in St. Louis. And really, he ended up signing another 5-year contract. And I thought, nah, I'm not waiting 10 years. And so when Pittsburgh called, I took the Pittsburgh CEO position there. And from there, again, we ended up with 4 great years. Love Pittsburgh, still have friends in Pittsburgh, as you so know. And we did a great job there. But after about 3.5 years there is when Charlotte called. I didn't know people were watching me. And I actually turned Charlotte down, because I'd only been at that time in Pittsburgh 3.5 years. And I'm old school enough to know when longevity in a position means something on your resume, where there's a generation now, they couldn't care less about staying somewhere. But after a while, a few months later, Charlotte called me back, and they just said, everybody we talked to around the country, your name keeps coming up. And I thought, okay, that's interesting. So I had a program, little training program, a couple of staff members and I were coming to Charlotte for, and I told the headhunter that I'll be in Charlotte on these 2 days. If you can get your search committee together, I'll meet with them. And not really looking for a job, but I'll meet with them. What the heck? And I really was impressed. I was in this room with all of these folks, all guys, and there were 2 females in there. One was the headhunter, and the other one was an executive. She was representing a CEO who couldn't be there. And we had scheduled to meet for an hour. We met for over 2 hours. And I have to admit, Holly, that I was kind of full of myself. I didn't have a tie on. I was tired. I'd been in class all day. I had lied to my coworkers saying I was having dinner with friends. And so I just kind of lit into them. And I just told them exactly what I thought they thought was right, what I thought they were thinking was wrong, and what they should be thinking. And it was just vintage Ronnie, trust me. And so one of the gentlemen took me home back to my hotel afterwards. It was kind of interesting. He became a good friend of mine after I moved here in Charlotte. But at that particular time, after a 2.5 meeting that he was a part of, and we had about a 20-minute drive back to the hotel, he didn't mention one time anything that happened in the interview. We talked about family. We talked about personal experiences, et cetera, et cetera. And I can say this guy, after coming to Charlotte and getting to know him, that's him. That's what's important to him. And so the next day when the headhunter called me, the first thing I said was, I guess I made him mad. And she said, no, you're the only person who told them what they needed to hear, and they want to continue to have conversation with you. And I thought, oh boy, yep. I had not thought about leaving Pittsburgh. And I mentioned to my wife at the time that I was having this meeting, but not in the context of, I would be taking another job. Just I'm doing it out of courtesy. And now I had to make the phone call and say, look, this is real. And she said, are you interested? And I thought, okay, that's fine. Let's yeah, I would be interested. And so they want to give you a proposal. I said, okay. And they sent me a proposal and I sent it to my attorney and Amy looked at it and she said, you want to play hardball? And I said, of course. And I did. And the rest is history. They accepted it. We moved on. I started in July of '05 and we did a heck of a run there. So my point being in that all those years of engagement, years of leadership, years of understanding that people are watching you, years of understanding you've got to do what's right at all times. There's a if you in the business we're in, you can't have a thin skin. You've got to tough it. I would tell prospective employees if you can't stand to read something in the paper negative about yourself, or see something on the news negative about yourself, or if your family can't stand to see something on the news or read in the paper something negative, if you can't stand for somebody to stand up and take credit for something you did in a public setting, or you can't stand for somebody to stand up in a public setting and blame you for something you didn't do, you're in the wrong business. Because that's the world we live in. And if you can't handle that, if that bothers you, then you are in the wrong business. One of the most valuable lessons I learned and incorporated into my career was bottoms up management, never top down. It's service management, whether it's with my employees, with my board, with my community stakeholders. It's bottoms up. I'm inclusive. I genuinely want to know what's going on and how can I involve more people. When I asked you how you doing, I really want to know how you're doing. And that bottoms up approach, that personal engagement with people you work for. I purposely get up and walk around the office and sit in somebody's office and talk about something other than the business at hand. I want to know I want to know about the dance lesson your daughter's taking or the baseball team your son is on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I want to know that. I want to know your kids' name. How old are they? What's going on in their lives? I want to know your spouse. Exactly. That's part of it. And to me, that's genuine. And I didn't do it out of trying to buy favor or going through the motion. I genuinely care about people.
Right, I love that because business is so personal. It's where talented people invest so much of their lives and their time and their energy and their ideas. And there's sacrifices there. And yes, there's transaction. We are compensated for our work, but it is so deeply personal. And so for people who are tuning in and paying attention to this conversation, they might be picking up on some really important lessons of leadership that allows for business to be personal, allows for a level of autonomy, allows for a realization of that narrow space that sometimes has to stretch and sometimes becomes even smaller. One of the things that I find really fascinating about your work history prior to the consulting and the leadership development, but this whole period of time where you leveraged your talents in economic development, I find it really fascinating because I find that a lot of people don't really understand the value of leaders in economic development serving regions. And I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about that value because so often we we just get focused on how our work is impacting our bottom line and our household. But when we meet a leader like you who's developed a career of economic development leadership, your work impacts entire communities, entire regions, and the thriving of those regions. So, can you talk a little bit about just that and educate those who might not be as familiar with the kind of work that you've done historically?
Well, yes, I will. Economic development, I like to characterize it's not a job. It's a calling. It's a mission. You're absolutely right. We are in a position to really impact the lives of a lot of people. It's a very important function in a community, and decisions that you make and the sacrifices you make pay off. And there's nothing more gratifying than to drive by a building that has sat empty for God knows how long, and now you've got 30, 40 cars in the parking lot, and because of the work that you did, now you've got a company in there, and now 25, 30 families now are better off because now they have sustainable employment. That's what gets you up in the morning. And it really, like I would tell people who work for me, if this is just a 9 to 5 to you, then you're in the wrong place. This is not a 9 to 5. This is a lifestyle. This is not a job, and that's in my book as a chapter. And this is a lifestyle. This is a mission. This is a ministry. This is a calling. Truly making the sacrifice, and I say sacrifice because we take a lot of hits. But Shreveport, St. Louis, Pittsburgh, Charlotte, it's been one of the most memorable experiences I think I ever could have undertaken. I have touched more lives in the office and outside of the office. I am, back to one of your earlier points, I am a strong proponent of work-life balance. And I truly encourage folks, take your vacation. Now, one of my classes, Holly, I was teaching in just, I was out of curiosity. I had about 60 people in the room. And I asked them, how many of you take every day of vacation that you allotted every year? 2 people raised their hand out of 60. And these 2 guys happen to work for the same state, and the state mandated it. We're so concerned that we don't take our vacation days, that I encourage you to take vacation days. Doing this in my offices that I ran, I would, between Memorial Day and Labor Day, we had what we call summer hours. We shut the office down at noon every Friday because I truly believe during the summertime, your mind afternoon after 12 o'clock is not focused on work. You might as well go home or go do whatever you want to go do this weekend and get an early start. If you work for me and you're in the office and you tell me your son is in a play tomorrow morning at school, I would be mad at you if you didn't go.
This is a good lesson for other CEOs to hear.
If you're a working mom and you've got a baby at home sick and you're in the office and you've got your mom or somebody there with the baby, but you're calling every 15, 20 minutes, every 30 minutes checking on the baby. No, Holly, go home. That's where your head is, and that's where your heart is now. I support that. Go home and be with your sick child and be the mom you want to be. Work should not stop you from enjoying your life and the benefits of life. We've messed this thing up. Work was created in an effort to actually give us resources to enjoy our lives. Now work is the means to an end. And it's very unfortunate. But as a leader, as a CEO, I just believe that if you take care of the people who work for you, give them opportunities. We're in a profession, to your point, that truly we're helping people. It's important. And so you get the full circle of benefit. You get the benefit of taking care of yourself, but also you get the benefit of helping others. And it's kind of that full circle at 360 degree of accomplishment that really makes it.
I love it. Ronnie, I know that we could spend all day talking about this, and I know that people are eager to get their hands on your book and learn more about your teaching through the RLB Academy. And there's various things that we'll share in our show notes. But I want to invite you to give me two responses, two different answers. One is describe the best work of your life. How do we describe what that best work of your life is? Because you know me, and I am hunting that down for people. The people I serve, the people I help through my coaching and consulting, we are architecting the best work of your life, because the narrow space of work and life, it's some days you're gonna add more on the work side, and some days you're gonna be needed to be more present in the life side. And they can't be opposing there. There's got to be something there. So when you think about describing what the best work of your life might be, how would you describe that?
Probably the best work, and believe me, doing my working career, I enjoyed a lot of different things. But I think some of the most rewarding stuff that I've done has actually been as a consultant. My maturity process has definitely changed as I've gotten older. And to be in a community that's in need of help, and now you have an opportunity to help them, and they are truly open to wanting to understand what you can do for them, and they take your advice, that's good work from where my perspective. To really, then you see the benefit of the work that you're doing, and the thought and the processes that you brought to bear. And then you see the smiling faces of the individuals that understand what you're doing and benefit from what you're doing. That to me is some of the best work. As it
I agree.
relates to personal, some of my, I could, you always, you start with family situations. That's always rewarding. But I think watching my kids evolve into adults has been one of the most rewarding things as a parent. Watching three individuals who grew up in the same household and how they've turned into three totally different individuals. And it's just amazing. And I couldn't be more proud of them and what they're doing.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. That really does bring work and life together in that narrow space as well. And so my last question for you, you gave some really good food for thought to executive leaders and managers on practices that they can pick up and go with, that they can build cultures for their workplace around that honors the dignity of the people who work for them and is really a human-centered leadership model. So Ronnie, my last question for you is if you are an executive leader who's listening to this conversation, who is convicted by some of the words that you said and the way that you say it, we know we want them to go pick up your book and really go for a long drive in the back seat with you. But where would you advise someone start if they recognize there are changes that they are in a position to make to navigate those narrow spaces better?
I think you start, and this is the whole chapter in the book. Um, it's integrity. You've got to be true to yourself first. I can't lead you to be good if I'm not good. Integrity is who you are when no one is looking. And when you look in the mirror, you know if you're being honest with yourself and with the people that you engage with on a daily basis. You have to keep that pure. You cannot live a fake life because it'll show. So when I talk about passion for people, it's genuine because I genuinely like people. When I ask you how you're doing, I really want to know how you're doing. When I tell you I'm going to help you, I'm going to do everything in my power to keep my word. When I need to discipline you, we will turn it into a learning situation, not just an opportunity for me to blow off steam. Because I want you to grow. And if you find that you can't grow in this environment, we will help you find a place that you can grow. Because everybody, to your point earlier, we spend too much time at work. And sometimes we spend more time with our coworkers than we do our family. We more awake hours during the week, definitely. And so, you've got to be true to yourself. And if you're true to yourself, it makes life easier in all your relationships. That's where it starts.
That is great advice. And I always find great advice from you. That's where our lives just connect in such a great way. And I really value your wisdom, your leadership, your history, and your future. And I just appreciate that you joined me today on the Narrow Spaces. And I'm very glad that there are plenty of ways to get in touch with you and for people to continue learning from those experiences that you've shared. So Ronnie, thank you so much.
You're so welcome. You take care. My pleasure.
You too, friend.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, Ronnie. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Thanks for joining us in the Narrow Spaces of Work and Life. What do? I'm on a mission to help people to have the best work of their lives. I help leaders do good. I help managers be good. And I help employees feel good. And when leaders are good, employees are engaged, energized, effective. And together, we get to live the life we deserve. Be sure to check out the show notes for more information on where to connect with our guests and sponsors and experience all things Narrow Spaces at narrowspaces.com, where you can gain access to this episode, subscriber extras, and more.